Now, how would you describe your relationship with Steph?
It's great. Like, there's nobody, like, when I got hurt at the Connecticut game last year, like, I bawled in Steph's arms. Like, that's somebody I will.
Caitlin Clark wasn't lying to hide something shady. She was protecting someone who's had her back since the very first day of her rookie season. And now the real story behind that decision is finally coming out. Word is spreading fast through the fan base that something Caitlin said about her relationship with head coach Stephanie White wasn't the complete picture. And on the surface, that sounds like the start of a scandal. But slow down for a second, because once you understand the context, the whole narrative flips. This isn't about deception. This is about loyalty, plain and simple. About a rookie superstar choosing to absorb pressure quietly instead of letting her coach get dragged into a media storm that never needed to happen in the first place. Caitlin Clark has spent her entire rise taking hits so the people around her don't have to. Game after game, interview after interview. And what's surfacing now about her and Stephanie White only confirms it even further. Stick around, because once you hear the real reason behind what she said, you're going to look at her leadership completely differently. So naturally, your mind is already racing through this, picking apart every angle before you've even had time to process it. What did Caitlin actually say, word for word? And why did people jump straight to the worst possible conclusion before anyone bothered to look at the full context surrounding it? Was she protecting Stephanie White from unfair outside criticism? Or was she shielding the entire locker room from a controversy that never needed to exist in the first place? Why does loyalty, of all things, get twisted into dishonesty the moment it involves Caitlin Clark specifically, as if she's held to a different standard than everyone else in this league? Is it possible this so-called lie everyone's buzzing about was actually one of the smartest, most mature moves she's made all season? A quiet act of protection mistaken for deception? And maybe the deeper question, the one that really lingers, is this: how many times has she quietly taken the fall for someone else on that team, absorbing pressure that wasn't even hers to carry? And we simply never noticed until this exact moment forced all of us to finally look closer. Here's exactly what you're getting in this video. We're walking through the original comment that sparked this whole conversation and showing you the full context that conveniently got left out everywhere else. We're breaking down what Stephanie White has actually said about Caitlin behind closed doors and why their bond runs far deeper than the headlines suggest. And we're laying out why this entire situation is proof of Caitlin's character, not a crack in it. By the end, you'll understand exactly why she handled it the way she did and why it says everything about the kind of leader she's becoming. But before we dive in, do you think loyalty like this is rare to see in pro sports today? Let me know in the comments.
White, you all have a very close relationship.
Yeah.
Are you easy to coach?
I think I'm easy to coach, and Steph would say the same thing. And I think at times maybe difficult too, because I don't think there's many people that get guarded the way I do. So I think you have to get creative.
What you're seeing in this clip is a young leader handling a loaded question with more poise than most veterans ever manage. And honestly, it deserves a closer look than the headlines are giving it, because there's a lot more substance here than a quick soundbite can capture. When asked if she's easy to coach, Caitlin Clark doesn't dodge, she doesn't deflect, she doesn't give some rehearsed, safe answer just to move past the moment. She actually flips the question into something far more honest and far more revealing than a simple yes or no ever could be. She admits she might be tough to coach, but not for the reasons people clearly want you to assume when they hear that phrase out of context. It's because nobody else in the league draws the kind of relentless, suffocating defensive attention she does night after night, possession after possession, which forces Stephanie White to get creative, schematically, just to free her up enough to do what she does best. That's not a confession of conflict buried in a casual answer. That's a player giving real, genuine credit to her coach for solving a problem most coaches in this league never even have to face, let alone solve on a nightly basis. Then she goes even further, praising White's competitive fire as a near-perfect mirror of her own, almost like she's describing a partner rather than a boss. What you're watching here isn't tension simmering quietly beneath the surface waiting to boil over. It's two fierce, driven competitors who trust each other enough to push back hard without ever once breaking that trust between them. So naturally, you're probably sitting there wondering what people even found controversial about this in the first place. Why would anyone take genuine praise for a coach and twist it into some hidden conflict? Is it possible the lie these headlines are chasing is really just outrage manufactured around drama that simply doesn't exist? Why does Caitlin Clark get scrutinized this hard for showing the exact kind of healthy competitive friction that actually builds winning teams? And maybe the deeper question worth sitting with is this: why do people struggle so much to believe that two strong personalities can clash hard behind closed doors and still genuinely love working together every single day?
Scheme-wise.
Our energy's better. All right, now we got to marry execution with our energy.
But I don't think there's a better person to do that than Coach Steph. I love Coach Steph. And I think what I love about her the most is her competitive fire is the same exact as mine. We'll go at it, but like at the end of the day, like we love each other so much.
Here's the honest take. And it's not complicated at all once you actually look past the headline-chasing outrage. This clip shows zero deception, only real chemistry built over time. Clark openly admits she and White will go at it. And that's exactly what you want to see between a star player and her head coach. Not silence, not forced politeness, not passive agreement dressed up for the cameras, but real competitive push and pull that sharpens both of them week after week, game after game. The difficult-to-coach comment isn't a red flag waving in the background like some are trying to frame it. It's Clark simply acknowledging her own gravity on the floor, the sheer amount of defensive attention she pulls every single night, and giving White full credit for constantly adapting schemes around that reality instead of shying away from it. What you're really watching here is leadership and mutual respect on full display. Two competitors who refuse to settle for comfortable answers, not some carefully constructed cover story designed to hide cracks that don't actually exist. And once you see how the next clip builds directly on this same dynamic, layering even more proof of that bond on top of what you've already seen, the loyalty between these two only becomes harder and harder to deny, no matter how badly certain corners of the internet want it to be something else.
Two people being competitive, two people that really want to win, and I think a lot of those things happen all the time, and I know there's a camera on me, and that's how it's going to be, but there's a lot of people out there in the media or on TV that they think they know a lot of things, and they're just blatantly wrong about a lot of things, and I ride for Steph. I ride for these girls. Steph has my back more than anybody, so nobody in that locker room, in our locker room, or Steph, or our coaching staff thought twice about it. It's just another example of what everybody, all of you, want to blow up and make something.
What you're hearing now is Caitlin Clark drawing a line in the sand, and she's doing it with more raw honesty than most players ever risk in front of a camera, especially at this stage of her career. She doesn't deny the competitiveness. She owns it completely, calling it exactly what it is. Two driven people who want to win and aren't afraid to show it, even when cameras are rolling and every word gets dissected afterward. But then she turns the conversation towards something far more real than any scheme breakdown or locker room rumor could ever touch. She talks about breaking down in Stephanie White's arms after getting hurt in that Connecticut game last year. A raw, unguarded moment that nobody outside that locker room ever actually witnessed until she chose to share it herself. That single image tells you more about the depth of this relationship than any headline-chasing controversy could ever hope to capture, no matter how many times it gets recycled online. This isn't a player carefully covering for hidden tension behind a polished smile. This is a player visibly frustrated that something this personal, this human, got twisted into clickbait for clicks and views by people who weren't even in the building. And once you really sit with what she's describing here, with the emotion still clearly present in her voice as she says it, you start to realize the outrage was never coming from inside that locker room at all. It was manufactured somewhere else entirely, far away from the people who actually live this relationship every single day. So, you're probably asking yourself why this story even exists in the first place, if the person at the center of it is this openly defending the bond. Why would media outlets manufacture conflict out of two competitors who openly admit they trust each other completely, even after everything they've been through together? What does it actually mean when an athlete says she rode for someone through a raw, painful injury moment like that, in front of cameras without flinching? Why do people online feel entitled to define a relationship they've never actually witnessed up close, behind closed doors, in the moments that matter most? And maybe the deeper question worth sitting with is this: how many other stories in this league get inflated the exact same way, built entirely on assumptions and sound bites instead of what's actually happening in that building every single day away from the cameras?
Now, how would you describe your relationship with Steph?
It's great. Like, there's nobody, like, when I got hurt at the Connecticut game last year, like, I bawled in Steph's arms. Like, that's somebody I will ride for the rest of my life. Like, those are the moments that people behind, people don't see that. People that just sit on their phones all day, they don't see those moments. They don't see the moments where we come into work. They don't see the moments that really absolutely suck, that people have your back, but they think they know everything. In reality, they don't have a clue. And it's old, but it's the reality in the life that I've lived for the past 5 years. And
Here's the honest read. Once you cut through the noise, it's actually pretty simple. Clark isn't protecting a secret here. She's protecting something sacred to her, something she clearly doesn't think the public has any right to pick apart for entertainment. The Connecticut injury moment she describes isn't drama dressed up for sympathy, it's loyalty forged in a vulnerable second that most fans will never get the privilege of seeing firsthand. Away from cameras, away from headlines, in a moment that had nothing to do with performing for anyone. What she's really exposing in this clip isn't a flawed or strained relationship at all. It's a media culture that consistently profits off turning genuine closeness into manufactured controversy. Because peace and trust simply don't generate the same clicks that conflict does. This clip doesn't weaken the loyalty narrative people are desperately trying to push. It cements it even further, brick by brick, with her own words doing all the heavy lifting. And what comes right after this only pushes that same loyalty even deeper into the spotlight, building on it layer after layer, making it even harder to ignore no matter how hard certain corners of the internet keep trying to spin it otherwise. So when you put all of it together, the injury, the trust, the playful jabs about being difficult to coach, what you're really looking at isn't a lie that needs unpacking. It's a relationship that was never broken in the first place. Caitlin Clark didn't mislead anyone. She just refused to hand the internet a moment that belonged to her and Stephanie White alone. And maybe that's the real takeaway here. The strongest bonds in sports rarely look like the headlines describing them. If you want the real story behind these narratives before the clickbait versions take over, subscribe now, because this won't be the last time the truth about Clark and White gets twisted before it gets understood.